G'day friends, welcome to today's video. What you're seeing on the screen is a zine. Zine on the screen. It's my zine from the very first workshop I held, the Making a Zine workshop, and it is titled Inking My Thinking, which is just a fun little catchphrase that I like to think of when I'm journaling, essentially. So the idea was that in the workshops, by the way, I have talked about the workshops all already, so if you are curious to find out more about how they went, what I learned, what I loved, go and check out the video I uploaded a couple weeks ago where I finished the art journal spread from the class. But this is from the very, very first one, the first workshop I ever hosted, taught at, experienced for myself. So the idea was that if you didn't have an idea for a zine, that we could all work on one that followed the same idea. Now, I love zines because they're mini art journals. They're a really great way to build in a narrative thread because it's only 8 pages. And if you don't count the front and back cover, it's 6 pages. So you can really go there with your narrative, but it's not something that I was really focused on. I just wanted to touch on the idea of getting words and ideas into the zine. So working with collage, we touch on some really interesting things about working with scale and perspective and, you know, how it translates from an art journal into a zine page, because it is actually quite small. The idea is that you're supposed to be able to photocopy them and share them easily, which is also a fun thing to think about because how often do we really share our art journals with people? We can put them online, but to actually physically have something that someone else created, even if it's a photocopy, I think that's a really special way that we can share that. But either way, the idea, inking my thinking, it is a catchphrase, and if you want to follow along this idea to make your own zine or even some art journal pages, I'd encourage you to do it because it is super interesting just to see what's in there. You have to be honest with yourself. You can't fluff up the ideas, but just go through, and as you're creating, when you have these random thoughts that go through your head, write them down. So this is interesting for me because this zine was essentially a play-by-play of how I was thinking when I was teaching my first workshop. And plot twist, I was thinking about a lot of the same stuff that I think about just in my daily life. So for me, I feel like that meant that this is all the stuff that I am constantly thinking about, or that it comes up in a normal situation, maybe because I was comfortable, or I was maybe because I was stressed. I was trying to think about things that were normal to me and comfortable for me, and I didn't shy away from anything. Thankfully I wasn't thinking anything horrible, so everything on there is quite light, which is just, you know, it reflects the mood that I was in, it reflects some of the truths that I was having. There was an interesting point where you know, I walked into the art supply store. I walked into the island's creative escape, Los Gatos, and I looked at everything and I just felt Steve kind of like get tense. And I thought, oh no, he's worried I'm going to try and buy everything. Also a reason I don't go into Target very often for all my Aussies, and I don't know if you know this, but Target is our Kmart. We go nuts in there. You walk in trying to buy some kitty litter and you walk out with new fine liners and you know, a corkboard, throw pillows, whatever you went in there for, you're not coming out with it, or you will come out with it and $1,700 worth of something else. So that's how, you know, whatever Kmart is, what Kmart is in Australia, that's Target for us here in the States. I don't know what it is anywhere else, but please feel free to put in the comments what your version of that store is. I'd be curious to know the one in the UK or any European version of that store. One that you walk in and you cannot help but buy in there, and you don't seek to buy anything from in there except for maybe 1 or 2 things, but you always come out with something random and extra. You know, that's my danger zone. Anyway, I felt Steve get like that because he just knew there was so many gorgeous things on display, and you know, I was laser focused on the Daniel Smith watercolor stand that they had behind the counter. And it was just a lot. So I wrote that down. I was like, I know Steve is so nervous I'm going to buy this whole store. That was what I was feeling. I also put, I just know the cats are up to something. I was away from home. I thought the cats are definitely going crazy right now. They never behave, even when we're at home, and especially when we're away. So I just felt bad for poor Stella. She was over and cat sitting and making sure they were fed and that their kitty litter was all great. You know, this is a really interesting topic of conversation. Either way, I think the idea of the zine, you know, just kind of writing those things down, it doesn't necessarily have to be a narrative that ties all together, but it is a really interesting look at the random thoughts that just kind of bump around in your head, because you'll find that they're probably something that you're constantly thinking about or that come up in certain situations. And one of the interesting things for me that I noticed, and I did write on here, what if I told you my brain was empty right now? Because what happens when I'm creating, I actually really like to zone out. I like to turn my brain off. I'll put on some background noise on YouTube and kind of just zone out. So when you're teaching or hosting a workshop, that's not an idea that marries well with zoning out. Do you know what I mean? So I'm trying to get to this place where I feel creative and, liberated and free and loose, but also I'm supposed to be demoing, I'm supposed to be teaching, I'm supposed to be creating. It was a really interesting thing that happened, and I didn't even want to admit it. I thought, I'm not going to say that I'm feeling this right now, but it was, and then the more I tried not to think about it, I feel like it was the only thing my brain was thinking about, and then I felt truly empty. I was like, I can't even not think this anymore. So I did write it down. I told the class, and I think they found it really funny, but that's just some of the stuff that I was thinking. And the great part is I've got this play-by-play of the whole experience for me. Now I can look back at this zine and remember what it was like to host my first workshop, and the feelings that I was having, the thoughts that were running through my head, just how random and bizarre the whole thing was at some points. But I think it's a really fun little project to do, a really fun experimentation. If you're not someone that really checks in with your thoughts quite often, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know what you guys are thinking at any given time. I think some people have been very revealing in what they're thinking. Some people's zines I might encourage you to keep just for private eyes, but it's a really fun experiment, or exercise, I should say, exercise to do. If that's something that you want to have a go at today, please share it with me on social media if it is appropriate. I just have to put that out there. Because look, not everything that you will be thinking might be appropriate. There are times where I sit down and I don't have anything nice to say, but I vent it in my Cruella de Vil journal because no one's going to see that. I don't publicize that. That's not being turned into products and merchandise. Like, no one's going to see that. That is from me to get that out on paper, so I don't get it out on the internet, or I don't get it out on face to face with someone. Believe me, I'll address my issues, but all the extra feelings and emotions that don't need to be brought to that situation, that's what I think journaling is great for. It's really great to check in with yourself and be grateful for a lot of things. List out the successes you're having and pat yourself on the back for the achievements that you're having, but also sit down and look at everything that's going on and check in with all the things that you want to change. Check in with the feelings and emotions that you're having that you can't process. Journaling, I've come to know, is a very manual thing that you can do to process thoughts, because you're sitting with yourself. You've taken the time to literally get the thoughts to the front of your head and let your body actively put those down onto paper. You're inking your thinking, right? Hashtag trademark. No, I'm not going to do that. It is a fun catchphrase though, and this is what I'm kind of getting at. The whole idea of journaling has become a bit more important than I ever thought it would be, because I guess I never really experienced the benefits of it before. I did it when I was a teenager, but looking back through those, there was just so much teen angst in there. I would want to rip out half the pages and just think, you have no idea what life is like yet. So, it's hard to look back on some of those things, and I don't actively read through a lot of the venting that I've done in journals before, but in getting it out, there's a really interesting process to that, and some things that I think are truly beneficial. Something as simple as choosing the right word to write, to express a feeling or an emotion that you're having, can be so instrumental in knowing how to deal with it. I can process thoughts by sitting on the couch, watching trash TV and eating a Tim Tam, but it's not going to be as effective as if I sat down with myself, turned off all the external factors, and started thinking about what it is that I'm really upset about, what it is that I'm really struggling with. How does it really make me feel? Am I angry, or am I actually kind of hurt? Because, it's when you start putting that down in writing, you kind of get a better sense of where you might want to go moving forward. So journaling is something that I believe you should always try and have a go at. It's not something that you need to do every 5 minutes. It's not something that, is imperative to the success of your life. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're someone like me who kind of, I don't want to say a luxury, because it does feel like a luxury sometimes, but it can turn their brain off and kind of go into autopilot mode, you have to know that eventually that doesn't work when you're trying to be solution focused. And it has brought me to a lot of points over the past year and a half as I've started this creative journey online, where I feel like a lot of it is presented to the world, the successes, the failures, the trials, the tribulations. Not processing that stuff brings me to a really, really scary place with, anxiety and feelings of being overwhelmed and stress and the pressure that I feel sometimes. So I do need to check in with myself and kind of, see if the words that I was using 6 months ago are the words that I'm using now. How has it changed? Some of the things that I wrote down really struck me as new because they weren't feelings I've ever felt before, or they weren't things that I would even identify me feeling. So it has been beneficial, and I do just want to say that, I credit a lot of the processing that I'm able to do, which is kind of essential if you're going to be online and you're going to put your stuff out on social media. You open yourself up to a lot of problems. It's a lot of great stuff as well, but I will never sugarcoat it and say that it's all perfect roses and daisies and art supplies. It's definitely not, and you have to process that stuff if you want to move forward. If you want to stay where you are, absolutely fine. Watch Big Brother, get your Tim Tam, fall asleep on the couch. That's what I used to do. But I've found that this journey that I'm on right now is a lot more beneficial for dealing with some of the problems as they become bigger problems, or dealing with some of the feelings that I'm unfamiliar with. In all honesty, I don't want to deal with this stuff online. It's hard to deal with things knowing that people are watching and knowing that people expect you to do something a certain way, and it's and that you do have a responsibility to let people know if you need a break all of a sudden, or if you just you need to close your Etsy store for a hot minute. It can feel very overwhelming to do that, and believe me, I was processing up a storm the longer I kept that store closed, because I felt like I had to reopen it, but I just needed the break for a second. And I thought I would rather close the Etsy store. People don't need to be buying all the time. I don't need to send them over there to go and buy something. They can be fine. I would rather still put up YouTube videos and let the Etsy take a break. There's more to be gained from putting up a YouTube video for people to watch than there is for me to have the store open at the expense of putting up videos. Do you know what I mean? I mean, for me, I guess there's less to be gained financially, but that's where you get to check in with yourself when you're journaling. And I have my mission statement is what I keep coming back to every single time I get overwhelmed or stressed or want to give up. And there's nothing about being rich in my mission statement. It's all about sharing. It's all about encouraging. It's all about building and educating a creative community to give to others. That pay it forward idea, where I just need you to be empowered so that you can affect the audience that you have, because we all have access to people that no one else has access to. And it's great that we share it with each other, but there are people in your life that actually need you to share it with them, because you have a unique set of gifts and a blend of communication or story and wisdom and testimony that they can relate to. I can't relate to everybody. Honestly, I'm shocked that I relate to anyone, because I am crazy. I am literally insane. So that people even, open up to me and would be willing to receive whatever I had to share. I know for a fact that everyone has this opportunity to affect the other people around them. So just getting to my journal, writing all of that down, it always brings me back to a place where I have to sit there and think and not tune out, not go into autopilot, make sure I check in with myself and the other things I've written before, make sure that I can't give myself any excuses, because I know myself. I know I would find the first excuse not to do something if I wanted to be lazy. That's what we all do as humans, So journaling has become super important, and I do just want to stress that if you're someone that wants to get into it, there are plenty of videos out there that would encourage you to do it as well. And I credit Ali Brown for really going there. It always kind of hit me when she would use the word scribe, because it hit on something in me that I feel like I learned when I was a kid, and the importance of documenting all of that. And you'll see people's taglines like Sojourner tagline, documenting life as it happens. There's a real value in all of that extends just beyond, oh, I've got great memories to look at. It's literally processing what you're doing here, how you're doing it, what you want to keep doing, and how you're going to go forward doing that. So I just wrote a whole blog post on Patreon of all the points in the past year and a half that I considered giving up. And I do kind of sit there and think at every one of those points, I went into a journal or I got a piece of paper out or I sat there with my thoughts and processed it. A lot of the time through art, but more recently and, you know, especially throughout this year, a lot more with words. So I want to encourage you to grab out a piece of paper, even write down the most random thought you're having right now. Just one sentence, one thought, wherever you need to write it, just scribble it down, move forward with your day, and hopefully some of this resonates with you if, like me, you're someone that pushes yourself until you can't push yourself anymore. It's my own fault, I overloaded my own work schedule, but at the same time, this is something that truly helps and I find more necessary than anything else. I do need to, especially at points like this, sit down with myself, with my thoughts. If I can get them down onto paper, then great. Even still, turn off all the other distractions and just have a think. I was actually at the beach this morning. I'm sunburnt because I haven't seen the light of day for months. I didn't, honestly, I thought because I still have my Australian skin, I thought I could take the sun, but not at all. I even had 30 plus sunscreen on, so that's worrying. But, you know, I was sitting there and I was looking at all the sand, and not to be any kind of profound, but I'm looking at the sand and thinking, you know, that I'm smaller than that piece of sand on this planet. Like, there is, but at the same time, like, if I didn't have all of this sand here, like, would I enjoy my toes being in it? Like, I don't even know what I'm trying to say there. I just, being there and just kind of sitting in nature, which is something that I'm not about. Like, I'm not hippy dippy nature girl. Like, I don't feel any of that stuff. But I had this moment just like looking at the sand on the beach and just feeling it. I didn't even want to sit on a towel. I just wanted to sit in the sand. I didn't care that I was going to get dirty. I put my feet in the ocean and it was freezing, but I didn't care. I just kind of stood there and I just thought, oh, I can turn off for a second. I can like sit here with my thoughts and think about what I want to do when I get home. What do I want to achieve? What do I need to do? What other things can I do for myself right now? Is there something that I could cut back on? I'm striving for balance at the moment, so even getting to the beach was just a huge step for me today because I thought, you know, it's the first thing that I'll sacrifice. I'll say, no, you can't have the morning to yourself. You've got work to do, but I need the balance. And the balance is something that you'll see all through my journal. If you're allowed to read the journal that I'm working on, but you're not, unfortunately, it's got a lot of stuff in there that's very damaging. But the journal that I'm in, you know, and I've been talking to friends about balance. Like, I'm craving it. I need it, but I also know I've got a lot of work to do to get there. And what are the ways that I can kind of figure that out, you know, as I'm approaching it? How is it affecting me not having the balance right now? Like, what are my feelings? What am I actually feeling? If I had to put it down in words, what would those words even look like? And, you know, even today, as I got to take myself to the beach and pretend that I knew anything about nature, I was sitting there thinking, this is a really good thing for me. Like, I do still feel a little bit guilty, so guilty is a word I would write down. It's my truth. I know it doesn't have to be, you know, how I leave the day, but I did feel that, but at the same time I felt super relaxed, and that's something I haven't put in my journal for a hot minute. So this is long-winded, and I'm super sorry that it was very off topic, but I just felt compelled to say that today because I know we're going to enter a very, very busy season. I know for myself, Inktober is coming around the corner, as is Whimsyween at the same time, and that is a slippery slope into Christmas. This becomes the time where people really need to stop for a second and just check in with yourself. I'm not telling you have to write it down, but I am saying that there is a benefit to manually processing your thoughts, inking your thinking, grabbing a pen, picking a word for it, and putting it down onto paper. That's all I'm going to leave you with today. I hope it didn't sound like I was on a soapbox. Honestly, probably just speaking this out there more for myself than anything else. And I will be back with you soon for another video. Hope you have a great day. Bye.